deleting our recently resigned members from the attendance roll. Bob Garner.
Here.
Judy Keys.
Here.
Dan Shinnick.
Here.
Sam Strife.
Here.
Howard Vogel.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
Excellent. That will bring us to our first order of business, which is the reorganization of this commission. In light of recent resignations, we need to identify a chairman and vice chair. Anything else with regard to the reorganization that we need to consider?
That's the only current positions we've had. We haven't had a clerk.
Okay. With that said, I would offer my own name as for consideration to members of the commission as chairman. Is there anyone who would, I don't know.
Well, I've told you no before, and I'll tell you no again.
Okay.
Actually, to keep it positive, and right, since you've offered your talents and time, why don't you just say, would anyone care to advance a motion in that regard?
Would anyone care to advance a motion in that regard?
So moved. Second.
All right, great, very good. Motion carried.
Exactly you want.
And
Do we do a vote?
Yes, please.
Yep.
Yes, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
oh, sorry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Voice unanimous.
All right. So then to the matter of the vice chair. Shall anyone?
I would nominate Howard for consideration.
Do you accept?
Yeah, I would.
Then
I just don't know if there's anybody else that's interested. Otherwise,
I'd be somewhat interested, but if you want it, you can have
would
it.
you, no, let's go ahead, Sam, if you'd really like to. I mean, I'm not gonna, you've been in town a lot longer than I have.
The compensation is phenomenal in this position.
Don't I know? I don't know how anyone makes that decision.
It's your call. I mean, you've been in town longer than I have, so if you'd like to play that role, I'm more than willing to.
Okay. What I will say, and this is the reason I'm saying it, is that I have more time than you on it, but that's not the point. I've gone through the whole Mass Association of Conservation Commissions training,
Sure,
so I do have a bit more background.
that's what I would defer to that.
You know, and
I'd be willing to make a motion to have Sam be the
Serve as vice chair.
vice chair.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, vice chair.
thank you.
Can I bring up I guess, in terms of organization, there is one other, and I don't know, do we need a CPC member?
Yes. I was going to,
You want to do that?
I do want to do that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I don't necessarily want to be vice chair. But the reason is that the chairman of that asked me to be a member a long time ago. And I wasn't touching Kurt's position because he did very well and so on. But
We do
If you
have that,
agree.
we do have that
As an outstanding.
appointment or
Yeah.
service as a void in that right now. So we do need a Conservation Commission representative to the Community Preservation Act
And
committee.
can the vice chair also serve in that?
Kurt did that before.
Yeah.
Then I move that that Sam, if he's willing, serve in that capacity.
And second.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Good.
Okay.
Well.
Was unanimous also.
don't let that hold you up till.
So with that business concluded, we'll move on to the second administrative item, which is payroll and/or vendor bills.
Thank you. have a request for payroll to be approved.
Oh, is it?
Yep. And while that's going on, this is for the chairman's approval. This is the hour sheet. And the hours for our two staff.
Supervisor signature or?
Yep. Yep. And there's one vendor reimbursement. We ordered a stamp. The registry was slightly uncomfortable with the address labels I used, but because I signed across them, they were okay with it, but they said they'd be much happier if we had an ink stamp. And I then signed, for the purposes of making a true and attested copy to be recorded.
It's a beautiful stamp.
And this is the backup invoice, if you could just initial and date near the red circle, that is the amount. Thank you. Yeah, that concludes that task.
Concluding payroll and vendor bills, move on to the minutes. There are 3 sets of minutes. First is,
Actually,
there are 2 sets of minutes. They are the March 26th and the April 16th minutes.
that is correct.
We'll take them each in turn. The March 26th minutes of 2019, has everybody had a chance to review those electronically?
Yes, I have one correction on that.
Okay, where would that be?
I actually printed it out.
Okay.
I think this is page 3 or 4.
Okay, and the certificates of compliance?
Yeah. It just, my opinion was that the wording was kind of not totally clear.
Okay, this is the invalid, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, for Todd's Lane, yep.
This is, you had, was invalid, had been issued for work done.
Okay.
And I
And
said,
you believe we should
that it
insert
had
and
been.
that it had, okay.
Because there were 2 separate things and they didn't just flow together.
Yep.
You can have this if you want.
Okay, I got it.
The other thing is that I would not be surprised to see these minutes, requests for these minutes. And can you tell me, tell the board, how they are prepared?
Debbie Cunningham, our secretary, reviews the notes and reviews the recording of the meeting. She then presents a draft to me, and, excuse me. She prepares a draft, then Jean Blanchard, our senior service person, comes in. She's very good at proofreading. She goes over it and does more grammatical corrections than in regards to content. And then it comes to me for review, and then I turn it back over to Debbie with any suggested corrections, or sometimes I expound on a subject matter or whatever, if I think say we have a discussion about the no cut, no disturbance, so on.
Yeah.
I try to make sure that the important topics that were part of the discussion are reflected in that, so.
Okay.
So it goes, so basically, it's reviewed by 3 people, but technically, only 2 of the folks, me, who's been personally in attendance at the meeting, Debbie Cunningham, who reviews the
Yeah.
video, audio.
She does it from the tapes and so on. so.
Right, and this one was gone over
I-
3 times.
Just to be clear, I have no problems with them. Okay, I did not review it all from the tape that's available on RCN. But, as I said, we have the chance of being sued at some point in time about this, or at least copies may be asked for. I just want to make sure I understand and all of us understand how they're proposed. Yeah. So I'm fine.
Okay. So with that, do I hear a motion to accept the minutes as presented for the March 26, 2019 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Is that approved?
Yes. Next is the April 16th, 2019 minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review those as well?
Yes.
And I have one extremely picky minor. Recommendations is hyphenated. I can't even tell you where that was. It was towards the end, though. I kind of
Okay.
chuckled when I saw that.
All right. Maybe we reformatted it and it didn't.
That's just what I
That's-
figured
I'm-
happened. Yeah,
Yeah, I was trying to think of how that could happen. and
Yeah.
That's how it could happen.
that's the only reason I could understand it.
Yep, got it.
Any other comments or revisions, suggestions? Hearing none, do I hear a motion then to accept the minutes of April 16th with the noted revision?
So moved.
Second.
Second, moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous approved, thank you.
And these next items need to be read from legal notices, correct?
Yes.
Yes, I'll be giving you those momentarily. Good, you're right on time.
Start reading from.
Okay.
Just down there? Just down.
Yep.
This is legal notice of the Rowley Conservation Commission. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended, and the Town of Rowley Wetlands Protection Bylaw, a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, May 7th, 2019 at 7:45 PM at Room 5 of the Town Hall Annex at 39 Central Street to consider a notice of intent application filed by Paul Varias for proposed construction of a common driveway, a single-family dwelling 28 by 64, and a garage 28 by 36, stormwater facilities, grading and utilities possibly within 100 feet of the 100-foot buffer zones, bordering vegetated wetlands, salt marsh, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and the Great Marsh ACEC at 491 Main Street, map 31, parcel and lots 26 and 27A in Rowley, Mass. And with that, the applicant has the floor.
Good evening, I'm Ann McMenamy from Hancock Associates, representing the applicant. My colleague, excuse me, Deborah Colbert, will speak next. I'm the wetland scientist, she's the professional registered engineer. So I will start with first some administrative items, the green cards that we received so far.
Oh, how do you know what I was
And
going
I
to ask for?
probably already have it, but I'll be for the minutes. So this is our first public hearing on this project. We will be asking for a continuance this evening after we have a presentation and questions and answers, because we do not have a DEP file number yet. It is posted on their website with their typical entry of waiting for the fee to clear. And then, as a result of some recent developments, Deb will speak about some changes in the design to some of the stormwater management features that are underway and that we'll be submitting to the commission in the near future. Another administrative item is that since we filed the notice of intent, the property owner has changed. It is now the applicant. That was as of May 1st, and we have the documentation if the commission needs that for your files.
Thank you very much.
Okay, no problem. I realize there's probably folks in the back here that will want to see the plans and stuff, but I'll start with like this. Yeah, I don't know if they can see them on that angle either, but hopefully.
Is there any way to turn this one over here since the board has that?
Is that okay? Would that work with the recording though?
Well, the recording.
I think we should leave it probably where it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
If anyone needs to come up front, by all means.
Okay, so I'm going to start by talking about the wetlands jurisdiction on the property and the activities that are proposed as part of the notice of intent within jurisdiction. And then Deb will speak to the grading design, stormwater management, and any sort of constructability questions that the commission or the public may have. First starting with the wetlands jurisdiction, the color up really helps here, but we're on the edge of the Great Marsh here, and then out here and here. All the associated buffer zones, local and state, as well as the ACEC buffer zone, which is this outer brown one, are shown and colored up on here. We also have 4 areas of landslide to coastal storm flowage from the salt marsh. The ferment is included in the back of the notice of intent. It's elevation 13, so it's coming in from here, The blue here is elevation 13 here, and then this section of the existing driveway between here and here, and then one more area just off the existing driveway. Besides salt marsh, which are the green, in this area was considered bordering vegetative wetland. It's mainly Phragmites, but it's got a couple other things in it. This one is definitely freshwater, is bordering vegetated wetland. The existing conditions are that there is a dwelling, a single-family home, way out at the end of the existing driveway that comes off of Route 1A, 491 Main Street. The proposal is to subdivide the property into a second lot so that a second house could be constructed in this location along with a garage, stormwater management features, and a barn. There was a typo in the description of the notice of intent that we called this a common drive. It's a public way, and we'd like to make sure that we get that corrected when we go forward with our verbiage in the order of conditions. The activities within jurisdiction, I'll start way out at the end of the driveway, is there is a small proposed garage, a two-bay garage, to be adjacent to the existing dwelling. It's outside of all jurisdiction except for a small sliver of the 100-foot buffer zone to the ACEC, elevation 9.2. This is a maintained lawn area and part of the landscaped yard that little sliver would correspond with. Moving back down, so you can't see it here, it's not colored up, but the existing driveway comes right back down here. That'll remain as is to the existing house, but there will be improvements to the public way starting at Route 1A and coming out to the new proposed second home and associated features. Deb can speak to the grading and the drainage components of that. This home, barn, stormwater, and garage and septic system are all outside of wetland jurisdiction. Okay, so we've got the little sliver of ACEC buffer zone. The primary area that we're before the board for tonight is the existing driveway runs through a pretty long stretch of landscape coastal storm flowage, which is elevation 13 based on the FEMA mapping. We'll speak to the improvements, what the grading will be in this area. The other feature is for the fire department to meet the fire department's requirements. It's a small turnaround area in this location. And then we also catch just the edge of the driveway / public way with landscape coastal storm flowage here. Excuse me, we had a site walk with your agent today, the two of us, and We were given some suggestions of, or some notification of some items that are, will probably be as a special condition within the order of conditions. We were asked for a construction sequence for how we'll go about, what order we'll go about these things. The special conditions I think we talked about were adding, for the commission's policy, adding some stormwater infiltration for the runoff from the roof of the proposed garage. I may have to check my notes here for the rest of the stuff. There was some piles of debris that the new owner has started to clean up on the property. They're not all in jurisdiction, some of them are within the buffer zones and the setbacks, but that Brent had made us aware would be a special condition for the removal of any man-made debris that's been left on the property. So there's some concrete, there's some wire, there's some pipes, it's things like that that are in little spots here and there. We also expect a special condition for iron rod boundaries to go along the new property line over in this area. And we have no problem complying with that. We mentioned the construction sequencing. And the last one was looking at this land subject to coastal storm flowage here and what that means with the driveway coming up a little bit in height. So those will be items that, the few of these items will be back in a couple weeks to, we'll submit additional information before then as well to the planning board. And we'll speak to those things then. I just wanted to make you aware that there are going to be some minor changes from what we have before you this evening. That really covers the basics of what's subject to jurisdiction, what activities are subject to jurisdiction, and what the wetland jurisdictions are locally and under the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act. I don't know if you want to wait to take questions on any of that material to the end, or you'd like to hear the rest of the presentation, or
I would like to open it up first to questions on this particular portion, because I have a question immediately. What is the total area that we're talking about impacted in the
land subject to coastal storm flowage? Let me check the form. I don't have it memorized. 12,610 square feet.
Okay, but that does not include the little sliver on the ACEC, right?
That does not. That was just for the driveway improvement areas here within the land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Does anybody?
Doesn't that also include this here? Because that's in the 100-foot buffer. And
No, it's just for the resource area, that number. Yep.
That garage is just impacting on the buffer zone, right?
That's the 100-foot buffer zone to the ACEC, yes, for the area of critical environmental concern.
Are there any other questions regarding this portion of the presentation from the commission or from the gallery?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Demento.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Bill Demento, and I'm Butter. Just out of curiosity, up until now, you've been calling it a private way with no town ownership whatsoever. Now you're looking to call it a public way. I'm just curious why.
No,
I misspoke.
She misspoke. It's definitely a private way.
Okay.
Yeah.
It will remain a private way with a so in order to develop this, we needed to create a private way to here, and then from there is a common drive so that they can access through this property.
Okay.
But it is
That makes sense.
definitely a private way.
I apologize. My area of expertise is not zoning regulations, it's wetland regulations and rare species regulations.
Not a problem. It
And that-
just perked up my ears
Yeah,
because
okay,
of town
good.
obligations.
Good catch.
For a
Right,
public
Yeah,
way, that's
good
all.
catch.
No.
What,
Fred,
they
you don't
just-
mind picking up the budget, right?
Oh, I'm sure Pat will love to plow the driveway, right?
There was one other item about existing conditions that I just reminded myself of what I said, that some of my expertise is in rare species. There is a priority habitat for natural heritage that is shown just nicking the front corner of the site here, but mainly off-site. We don't have any work proposed in that area, so we don't need to undergo a review by Natural Heritage Endangered Species Programs pursuant to the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act. But I wanted to make the commission aware that it is yet another type of habitat that is nearby and just catching the very, very edge right there on the property.
What's the closest area of work to that is?
Is on the existing driveway coming off the Main Street. But there are no setbacks to that, you know, you're either in the habitat or you're not. Yep. Okay,
Okay.
thanks for letting me
And
add
your
that.
new driveway's being paved, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
But only up to that.
The,
Right, this will be pavement here?
No, no,
No?
no. The pavement will end at the right of way for the private way. And then this will be a
Gravel.
gravel drive.
Okay,
And then
I don't think we
and then gravel out
clarified
to
that
the
during the
rest of the
sidewalk
house.
today.
Yes, no change whatsoever to,
Right. We were just talking about access to the barn.
Right, and we were thinking, at least I thought we said, or you heard, or asked, was this gonna be impervious area? And we were thinking about.
Compacted gravel
Yeah.
gets pretty close with
Yeah.
its coefficient, so I mean,
Yeah.
but isn't quite there.
Yeah, agreed.
So I'm confused, where's this little garage going that's gonna go?
Right here, here's the existing house.
Oh, there's the,
And there's
okay,
the- yeah.
so you're not, I couldn't see the existing, okay.
yeah, so
Yep.
Brent, if you can move it over.
So basically, everything in brown is new.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
A little further.
close.
And then no new septic for the.
There is
Yes,
a-
there is.
For the new, for both,
No,
No.
just for the new house.
not for the old one?
Not for the old house.
Okay,
The
in
old
this-
septic is right.
In the center of the
And it has
screen
passed
is that
Title V.
Yes, right here.
Okay, so there's the house.
only construction activity associated with the existing residence.
That's right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, should we move on?
yes, please.
Okay, floor's yours.
Do you need to, like, make notification that we're moving on to the
sorry,
stormwater part?
No, I
No,
don't.
no, 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 no.
No, so I'll just continue.
You're gonna talk about the construction activities, is I believe what Ann
Oh,
said in her
okay.
presentation.
Yeah.
So you get to talk about the
Yeah.
construction that's in jurisdictional wetland
Ah,
resource
yes.
areas or their buffer zones.
Right. So, the existing driveway to this existing house is extremely steep and hazardous for the existing owner, let alone a future homeowner. And we met with city officials, we met with the planning board, we've met with Conscom, we've met with the Board of Health, and we met with the fire chief. And the fire chief has agreed that if we can improve the access to the property, plus add a fire hydrant, reduce the steepness and widen the entrance, that he would be in favor of subdividing the lot. And so we have done that. We've widened the entrance to Route 1. We will need to go to the state in order to get access on their right-of-way to widen the existing access way. And then we are going to pave the steep, we're going from a 17% grade to a 13% grade. And then coming down here, this is all going to be paved because it's a private way. The fire trucks need to have access. The fire department requested a turnaround, and then it will go to a private common drive. What recently happened is we went out and did test pits. We found that where we were designing the stormwater to handle this impervious pavement was not permeable. And so we are now in the process of redesigning, moving the pond in order to capture all of this runoff and capture all of this runoff into the pond, be able to handle the 100-year storm, and then slowly release it back into the land subject to coastal flooding. In regards to the proposed homes, we're disturbing more than 25%, more than 20,000 square feet of disturbance on Lot 1. Therefore, we need to handle, because of your bylaws, we need to handle the stormwater coming off of the impervious areas that we're creating with the house and the garage. We did a perk test here, it did pass, so we're going to do infiltration of all this runoff into the ground. As far as the barn is concerned, we were originally going to design an infiltration system behind. We ran into a lot of gravelly material and high groundwater. So what we did was we shifted it, and we were able to perk here, but then once we had to move this, we decided that we're going to probably, it's not definitive, we're still working on the design, evaluation, and we're thinking that we'll be able to put it into the pond, infiltrate that 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm. As far as this house, this barn is concerned, I was not aware of the regulations today, but Brent made me aware that you now have
Policy.
policy. It's
To
not in the
infiltrate to the
bylaw, but it's policy that we will, that any impervious area in your jurisdiction needs to be mitigated with infiltration system of some sort. And so that I became aware of today, and so we will probably do, you know, a detention trench or infiltration trench. But again, that hasn't been decided at that point. The septic system is designed over here. This is the reserve for the septic system, and that's what I got. Questions?
The barn,
The barn.
what's the purpose of it?
The owner has.
Equipment,
Equip-
animals?
Not animals, cars, tractors,
Storage.
It's gonna be,
storage.
it's gonna be built like an equipment barn, not like an animal barn.
Not an animal barn.
It's not gonna be a metal building.
No. We have architectural drawings that we have submitted to the planning board, which we can also submit to you, but, yeah.
I neglected when I started to point out that the applicant and property owners are here here and over there.
Ashley and Mr.
Yes,
Burrows.
yeah.
Hello.
Questions?
The driveway, you said the grade was 17%,
Yeah. Currently, the driveway has a very, very short entrance. It's, you know, you can't come up to the top of the driveway and look left or right. Your car is going like this.
right?
And so the safest avenue to exit the property is to go right. With the intent for the fire chief, you know, he's like, I'm not he wouldn't even drive his truck down there. And so what we're doing is we're elevating the driveway and creating a landing spot that can accommodate their 30-foot truck without them you know, we've done all the design so that the fire trucks are not bottoming out, coming over that ledge. And then the existing is 16%, and we've gone before the planning board and they've accepted this design, and then we're gonna be less than 15%. So currently it's about 18, and we're gonna go to 16. We are filling in some of this area, and it is in the no cut zone.
Well,
So we have the.
that's all previously, yeah,
the
it's previously disturbed.
Yes.
So
Yep,
it was your choice to project a no cut, no disturbance zone on there. That's nothing that the commission would normally require on a previously altered
okay.
terra
great.
firma.
Sounds
Okay.
So we're definitely improving the access, we're improving the landing, we're improving the site distance, we're allowing for the fire trucks to be able to come into the property, and we're also, our client is also adding a fire hydrant at the very bottom of the slope here.
Is that heavy black line, the proposed
This,
new
yes,
grade?
this is the new grade. And currently, we're reevaluating this area here because of the stormwater situation. And then it comes back to grade, and this is existing.
Um, At this point, I think if there are no further questions, I will turn it over to Brent for his.
Well, actually, I'd like to make this suggestion, Mr. Chairman, since it's just shortly past the advertised hour for opening the hearing on the stormwater management permit, and we've already broached and started talking about stormwater, that may I give you the legal ad?
Absolutely,
And
yeah, that'd make sense.
so we'll have simultaneously, we'll have both applications open.
This is a legal notice of the Rowley Conservation Commission. In accordance with the Town of Rowley Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw, as amended, a public hearing will be held on May 7, 2019 at 8 p.m. at the Town Hall Annex located at 39 Central Street to consider a stormwater management permit application filed by Paul Arias for proposed construction of a common driveway, a single-family dwelling 28 by 64, a barn 30 by 60, and 2 garages 24 by 24 and 28 by 36, stormwater facilities, grading and utilities. Total site disturbance is approximately 34,000 square feet at 491 Main Street, map 31, parcel lot 26 and 27A. And so, continue?
Sorry, it's all one big project to me.
Yeah.
So I think I've kind of already addressed it. So we have a private way that we need to, because of the planning board, we need to deal with the 100-year storm. So we're handling that with the new redesign that we're still working on. As far as the disturbance of more than 20,000 square feet of this proposed house, barn, and house, garage, and barn, we have an infiltration system, and then we are trying to incorporate the barn into the pond so that we can eliminate one infiltration system. Over here, I found out today that we need to do something in regards to the barn, to the garage, and we will mitigate that. Questions?
All right, if there are no questions, I ask the agent to offer his commentary.
We've received one piece of correspondence in regard to this. Mr. Demento, may I read your email into the record? I'm going to read it in its entirety, so I'm not accused of editorializing
As
some of the
amended
comments.
with the pins versus the granite.
Yeah, that's part of multiple choice on question number 1.
Yeah.
This email is addressed to Kirk Baker, and Brent, myself, Brent Azek, as a conservation agent. Many thanks, and I'm sorry, this was received April 11th, excuse me. Many thanks to both of you and your respective town boards for the open and transparent communications issued regarding proposed development at 491 Main Street, Rowley, Mass. Beth and I are not looking to put our potential new neighbors in a difficult position, nor cause any delays for the proposed use of land at 491 Main Street. We are, however, looking to be proactive with regard to how their proposed development may affect the future value and condition of our property at 497 Main Street, Rowley, Mass. We hereby request that the following conditions be required if the property at 491 Main Street is to be granted approval for a two-lot subdivision. Number 1, solid granite bounds or permanent visible steel boundary pins be placed by certified land surveyors at lot corners, parentheses 3, and at halfway point along each straight property line there are 2, for a total of 5 granite bounds, or conversely the iron rods. We feel this is reasonable as the property is being subdivided and would allow questions, should they arise, to be raised well in advance of construction/development in the event that lot lines were ever challenged by the developers or abutter, parentheses Bill and Beth Demento, end of parentheses. 2, all rain drainage, both from the north and south side of the paved surface, from the private paved road be channeled and or directed into runoff collection basins designed to be adequate in size to handle 100-year rain/flood levels, that is, parentheses are, to be situated entirely on the property of 491 Main Street. This to be accomplished by constructing paved sleuthways and/or catch basins with asphalt or granite berms, directing runoff to drainage piping to avoid abutter land water saturation for unabated rainwater runoff management. 3, the private road design must be designed such that it places the burden of repairs and winter snow removal fully within the boundaries of 491 Main Street subdivision boundaries. Parentheses, it is not satisfactory to have snow plowed directly onto our property from the private way or to have repair/construction equipment on our property during construction, end of parentheses. Current driveway fill at 491 sits squarely over the property line at 2 locations along the adjoining property line. This is not satisfactory and must be remediated when the private road construction commences. The site at the front of the lot was discussed during one of your public meetings.
That's the one.
That obviously must be the planning board.
It was the planning
This
board.
is our first public meeting,
Yes,
so.
it was the planning board.
Thank you for consideration of this request. I look forward to hearing back from you both on this request. Sincerely, Bill and Beth Demento, 497 Main Street, Raleigh, Mass. So that being entered into the record.
Thank you, Brett. May I comment?
Could I just ask, could you just read to whom that was addressed again, one more time?
Kirk and Brent.
Kirk, and it's okay.
And if you wouldn't mind sending us a copy of the email for our files, that'd be helpful.
Oh gosh, it's a public record now. Surely you can have it.
Thank you.
So, did you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to state for the record that we're happy to see new neighbors, and we just figured we'd be open and transparent and right up front, just to make sure that things were clear, including boundary lines. And what has happened in the past is the past. And the pin was agreed to be dropped at the front north boundary by the surveyor, which has been done. And as long as
This bin you're
yes,
talking about.
as long as
yes.
from that pin we go 90 degrees to the road and there's no encumbrance on the frontage of our property, we have no issue.
Yeah,
The next straight line down to your LP mark, if you take your hand and come backwards, right along the boundary line,
I think he means
right there.
Yeah.
That pin right there, I believe it's 125 foot width, the full length of that piece right there is what we broke off. And that pin right now will sit onto your driveway, so on the existing driveway right now, so just when you... Yes.
so you're questioning the surveyor's,
No, not at all.
Okay.
The surveyor doesn't have a pin there, and we've requested that one be put there.
right,
It's pretty easy, it's a straight line to measure 125 feet, and you'll see that
this
that's,
is 397 feet from here.
that's 397,
to
but
here.
the width of the lot is 125 feet exact.
The width up here is 125 feet, however, the width back here is not 125 feet.
The
Just,
width- I believe it is.
if you look here, this
That was
is
by,
not
that was by
parallel.
design, 125 feet, when we broke the lot off.
We'll need to talk, we should
Yeah.
Okay,
communicate.
we can, it's not a problem. As long as, and the only thing that might have occurred is I believe we allowed 40 feet, so it might be slightly over 125, you're correct. Because the previous landowners bought a 100-foot strip that started from the middle of that lot going backwards, going southward.
I think it would be great if you and I and our surveyors have a conversation.
Just wanted to
and
be open and
Yeah.
transparent.
No, I
about-
understand, but I don't want to waste the time
Yeah,
of the
exactly,
Conservation
exactly.
Commission.
And we
So-
certainly didn't want to discourage our potential new neighbors and look forward to you coming.
Yeah.
All right, great.
And you had some mention about material dumped on your property or,
No, just in the course of the construction, if
Oh,
they needed
and
access
when
across
we-
our property, that
okay.
type of thing, that
No,
obviously.
your letter clearly said that there was piles
Yeah.
of debris that had trespassed over the boundary line
There are,
and had been
there
deposited on your
are
property.
materials at the front corner of the lot where it enters at the highway, and there are materials on the corner where it transects at that angle, where the driveway hits the edge of our property, that's all. And it's minor, we're just pointing it out. and making sure that as things are constructed, that's all taken into consideration, and that the pins are put in place so that it's clearly delineated.
Right. Understood.
That's all.
Now, that's between you folks, because I
Right.
clearly stated, as I stated on our walk today, the commission's standard for having iron rods inserted on boundary lines is for transect points. So where there's a change in degree, such as here, and I believe here, because there's a new lot line that comes up right there. So our standards, and I conveyed this.
And that would be satisfactory to me.
Right, so that, I mean, but again, you're free to have discussions with the new property owners and their representatives about multicolored pins, pastel pins, whatever type of pins you want. We just look for transect points of different boundary lines.
So
To
frankly,
have some type of
I thought I
permanent
was going to
marking.
be dealing with one of my 5 sisters for the next 50 years, and she decided that we're going to move on. So we're dealing with new neighbors, which I'm fine with that, and we just want to make sure that if I do anything or they do anything, we know where they are. That's all.
So returning to consideration of the two applications before us, I haven't prepared any concrete specific recommendations because the plans, as you've heard, are in a state of flux. And so it seemed enough that we had a walk today, that we specifically looked at the flagging for the bordering vegetated wetlands, which is located right at this small little point coming in there. We found one of the nubs of the flagging. I requested, our standard condition requires the flagging to be maintained during the project. So at a point in time where they have a survey crew return to the site, because this property received an ORAD, an Order of Resource Area Delineation previously, which established the delineation of these resource areas, they can be surveyed, located, and replaced out in the field. So we will have return to having clear markings of the delineated wetland resource areas. We also, on the site visit today, when we were going along the section of the driveway here where it transitions from being the paved private way to being the gravel common drive, we noticed that there is an area in here that showed surface inundation. And we looked at it. Previously, they had done some augering to examine the soils, and the soils do not show the characteristics of being hydric soils. The vegetation has some partial component, but not a dominant component of being facultative or obligate wetland species. So it does not key out under our regulations to be an isolated vegetated wetland area.
That's right, it's actually a little further back here, Brent, but it was,
Well,
where this-
it's actually where the basin
Yeah,
was
exactly.
originally proposed to
Yep.
be located.
that's right.
So,
And, you know, the surface water expression in that area right now, we don't think that it's coming from the mapped FEMA floodplain that would be coming in from this direction from the salt marsh. We think that the water that's expressing itself on the surface there is coming from running off the MBTA embankment and a little bit from the roadway. The soils, as Brent said, the subsoil, the B horizon was clearly upland. It was, the chromas was not on the edge of whether it could be wet or whether it could be, whether it would be hydric or whether it would be upland. It was clearly upland with bright aerated subsoil.
and in some cases, a lot of this site, there is not a great expression of changes in topography at all. It's pretty undulating, but then it varies, and obviously with railroad embankments, roadway embankments, or whatever, you do have a lot of changes, and there's a small area that's contributing down in that area. So the other thing that was touched briefly upon, she takes very good notes at my comments on the thing, is that we do have some areas where obviously folks decided to deposit some of their construction and demolition debris that will easily be cleaned up. I informed them that we have a typical condition involving a site that has superficial man-made artifacts on it, and that all be taken care of and remediated prior to any excavation or any other work. We have 3 or 4 sections of telephone poles, I think an old pallet, about a dozen to 20 broken cinder blocks in that area. We then come down a little further, and I don't exactly remember, but somewhere along the existing drive, someone had busted up some concrete and something else, and there was actually, it looks like they were trying to make a rudimentary rock wall. Then as we got further down, in an unfortunate insult to the salt marsh coming in over here, I think it was.
Yep, it is, right down this
wasn't
area,
it?
yep, we're in the same area.
Yeah, someone decided to go over the little edge of the slope, and there was a bunch of fencing and other stuff
PVC
deposited
pipes,
down there.
things like that.
And then around the residence, there was, again, some leftover scattered dimension lumber and stuff like that. Again, all superficial stuff, surface deposited that can be easily remediated. Just moving back a little bit, focusing on the notice of intent application, I made a recommendation that the applicant submit an existing conditions plan that clearly has the resource area delineations on it, the existing conditions of the site without any of the new proposed work, so that we sort of have a clean slate that shows all the regulated jurisdictional resource areas, and then obviously this plan then shows us the work that's going on. The existing conditions plan then also becomes an absolutely marvelous place to have an appropriate legend with the resource areas clearly and fully named and spelled out for that. And then just briefly touching upon, again, because the plans are in flux, I didn't do a detailed look at all the sheets, but hopefully there's a sheet in this plan set that will be focusing on erosion control and where erosion control barriers are located and stuff. I know that's going to be in flux here because of the change of some of the work. The only other thing is, probably the commission will get tired of hearing me say this, but of course the big difference between the stormwater management permit and the notice of intent application is that we have discrete jurisdictional areas with the notice of intent application, but then with the stormwater management permit, we basically have the entire site wherever we have a limit of work is jurisdictional. So that also facilitates the standard that I expressed, and that where to the maximum extent practical, the commission likes to see that infiltration methodologies be implemented for any new structure that has an impervious roof surface. And since we're just dealing with gravel drives and stuff and a very low topography here, only the paved portion of the private way is going to have a dedicated stormwater management system, where the rest of the common driveway and gravel drive to the existing residence just sheds water off, and the topography is low. I didn't see any opportunity for anything to be specifically channelized and sent over to the Dementos to visit their basement. So,
Not worried about it, there's something there.
So you said that jurisdiction extends to the limit of work specifically. In this case, is the limit of work the boundary of both parcels, or is it considered something smaller, or what is that?
it's smaller, and that's why the discrete plan sheet that has the erosion control, this is where they get the, we read off the square footage for disturbance, which was approximately 34,000 square feet, so that.
And is that, will the limit of work be delineated on this or another plan?
It will be by the erosion controls, right, is the limit of work?
Basically, the limit of work is the whole site. I mean,
Well,
but we're
the
going.
erosion controls
erosion-
are deployed to stop the
Per-
mobilization and
yes.
transport of sediments.
Yes,
So
yes,
any place that you're disturbing
Right,
should
will
have erosion controls,
And-
down gradient of them, so it's gonna,
Yeah, so there is actually silt fence designed and along here, and then there, and then up and over, and then there's a silt fence that comes around here.
Oh, so we would treat those as the limit.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah.
Very good then.
so that being said, unless there's any other questions, and one commentary. So now that we've been notified that the ownership of the parcel has been changed, I would request new
Signatures.
application signature pages with now the current owner signing off as well as being the applicant, so. And we should probably send those also to DEP, just
Yeah, you can do
so
that.
their records are correct in regards, because property ownership is a major criteria for responsibilities under both permitting processes.
Okay. All right, very good then. So you stated at the beginning of the discussion that you would be looking for a continuance
Yes,
to the next meeting of May the 28th? Okay. Do I hear such a motion?
And this would be for both.
For both
Notice of intent
notice
and
of intent and the
stormwater.
stormwater management?
So moved.
Moved. Second? Second. Moved and second. And all in favor?
I know that we've closed this, but can I ask a question, just off the record, not in regards to this, but in regards to electronic signatures?
This is
I've sent the appropriate queries to that.
Okay,
Section 5 of the cited chapter and verse states, 5B states that both parties need to consent to that. So I've sent queries to MACC and also the DEP
okay.
requesting that, because I don't know if we need to do something further,
But you are.
yeah.
Okay. And we can easily get it.
But if you need a pen and a piece of paper, I've got a blank application form,
Yep.
since Mr. Paul Verse is sitting right there, I could get his signature.
That'd be great. That'd be awesome.
I'd rather have you do it.
Yeah, we'll do
All
it.
right.
We're not gonna
I'm
interrupt the
not
meeting.
applicant.
You know, it was a nice offer. Okay, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time in the field today, Brent.
Small world.
I know, right? I saw you last meeting, and I'm like, I know that.
When do we meet you?
I think this is Historian Yeah, yeah. It's so funny, so the 28th in the next meeting, we have finished, so I think one, he was joking.
Don't sit on your glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
No,
for your
this
time.
Yeah, that could really have-
Appreciate it. No, that's not ours.
That's okay.
it really
Appreciate it.
happens by the 21st.
We'll
that would be
get
the time
everything
to
in.
distribute it.
So thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, how you doing? I'm trying to see you out. Yeah, I got it. Special tomorrow? Okay, I will go get his ear. Okay, no problems.
Looks like everybody wants to live next to a train. That's a trend?
Yeah, that's kind of funny, isn't it? Yeah, both applicants tonight are both next to
Train
the
people.
MBTA corridor.
Tired from it. You guys are pioneers, you're leaders.
So the next agenda item is continued, it can be read right from the agenda.
Okay, so this is a continued notice of intent application at 77 Railroad Avenue, map 27, parcel lot 103. David F. Jaquith, proposed installation and construction of a new single-family dwelling and upgraded sewage disposal system, possibly within the 100-foot buffer zone of salt marsh and ACEC inland, subject to coastal storm flowage. You have the floor.
Good evening, Chuck Johnson from CG Johnson Engineering, along with Dave Jaquith and Sarah Bork. And since the last time we got together, Brent had a site visit with myself and Dave, and I prepared a couple of documents. One is a construction sequence, as well as I did some revisions to the plans. In particular, added a legend onto the plan showing the contours and spot elevations, as well as the salt marsh and the area of critical environmental concern, as well as the land subject to coastal storm flowage. And also made clear the deck, which is down at ground level, the extent of the wood deck that we're proposing down here. And what
The outline above it is the cantilevered part of the structure, so looking at a two-dimensional plan, it was confusing as to whether that was actually coming over and
Yeah,
crossing
I
the
remember.
ACEC boundaries.
I remember that now, yeah.
So I thought our site visit was very was successful, and be happy to answer any questions that the board has.
And the board does have a memo or mini notes that I prepared.
Do you have any other comments to that point besides this? Or? Okay.
I don't think so. I mean,
No, I'm asking.
yeah. I mean, the contrast in one sense can't be greater. We go from 491 Main Street, where you've got all sorts of unobstructed room to maneuver and stuff, to this particular site, which becomes a challenge as to whether you should be using a dirigible or something in order to get over the site, just because the access. But I'll agree. Well, and I hope Mr. Johnson feels the same as I did, that the effort put into doing the construction sequence as sort of a flow chart of the activities that were going to occur helped us focus in on whether we'd identified the appropriate means of access, and whether putting the erosion control barriers up in other places wasn't necessarily going to impede a sequential later on step in the construction process. And I think that helped us work through how it could be done on a site that literally has such limited access to it, and then also presents the challenge of a sloping topography that then drops right down into the resource areas without really very much of a transition zone at all.
So that construction sequence, is that represented on this plan, or was that provided in a separate document?
It's a separate document.
There was a separate document that I prepared that...
It was,
Oh, yeah.
it passed out. It should have been paper clipped to the plan that I presented to you the other day.
And actually, as I was reading through and preparing for tonight's meeting, there's one slight change to this sequence. Under item 3K, and I'll let you get that in front of you.
Well, it sounds to me like you're going to send me a revised one. That's what it sounds like.
I'll
Just mark it up, it's a small change.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, the sequence for the project is to do the demolition work. Well, first, to set up all the erosion control, which is along the back here as well as along the side. Once that is set up, then the demolition for the home, and then to work farthest away from Railroad Ave and work our way back. Okay, so item K, so after the stormwater cistern is put
Oh,
in.
yeah,
and-
it says the opposite, it says start at the front and go to the rear.
That's right, so item 3K, what it should say is begin site work and landscaping from the rear of the dwelling to the front. That's the only change.
Makes more sense. So are you looking for a motion at this point?
Well, just reading through the memo here again, the recommendation is we wish to consider closing the hearing and issuing order of conditions on DEP 63-690 with special conditions for coastal resource areas, demolition work, etc. So, is there a typical standing set of conditions that we would apply for this, or?
For a single-family home. Yep.
Okay. Are you making a
Yeah,
motion?
take a motion to,
Then, do I have a second?
Second.
Second on closing the hearing and issuing the order of conditions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
very good.
Terrific.
Thanks.
When's it going down? Very shortly.
Well, we have the, receiving the order of conditions, and then we have the number of days that we have to wait. And
I just drove over there the other day.
There may be a weather.
It can only get better.
That's true. We're really looking forward to getting into construction. Let nature take its course. We'll get a tour when it's done.
Yeah, go on.
Be able to sit there and watch the birds. That's what we do at our house 2 doors away. It's just unbelievable. There was some new kind of gulls out there yesterday and today. Okay.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
You're welcome, Joe. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so,
Set behind me.
I guess there are, there's
That's
nothing
it?
left on the agenda. Do I hear a motion to?
Well, are there any permits or enforcement? Nothing?
I just want to,
I had no-
you sent out some
I-
notes. One of the notes was burning over at the Brad Street. Did that happen?
I do not know. The last day to
Did
accomplish
you
that-
authorize it though?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
The burning.
Yeah, the burn, the brush that was pulled out.
Okay.
No, we had a message.
So we should have a motion to adjourn.
Well, that's something I would like to discuss the possibility of. I reviewed the recording of our meeting on March 26th. And partly because I wanted to make sure I didn't make a motion that was under duress, as was claimed, and I did not. But I just wanted to know what happened. And I remember sitting beside Brent thinking that I know a lot of, no, I shouldn't say I know a lot. I am familiar with the agricultural agricultural aspect of conservation commissions as well as the other aspects. I have indeed examined them more in New York State than in Massachusetts because we have a piece of property up there. And I was just thinking, here we've got someone and I know he's not the only person in town who's really disturbed and does not understand the rules and regulations, and making all sorts of claims. I'm not going to say they're right, I'm not going to say they're wrong. I'm not going to say we're right, I'm not going to say we're wrong. But my view of the Conservation Commission is that we are here as judges more on, and it's more on Massachusetts law than local law, but it's also the local law which copies the Massachusetts law to a strong degree. And I feel it's appropriate, well, I feel that we're put in this position by the state rules, the state laws. And we were put in this position to ameliorate, to some degree, the effect of the rules and regulations on our local community, because local communities are different. There are lots of different communities. I mean, Newburyport's a city, they don't have almost any agriculture. We have some. Our areas out west have a lot. And I've wanted to do something that I feel that should be done, and that is to try to convince the farmers that object that the agricultural law isn't I should say the conservation law is not really against them. The rules and regulations are important. And to convince them that we're not sitting here trying to say you can't do anything. We're trying to make things done correctly. So I didn't want to work on, without anybody's knowledge of it, but I feel that that needs to be done. And if anyone objects or whatever, I'd like to know.
What do you, I guess I want to be clear, so what do you think needs to be done? What are you suggesting then?
I'm suggesting that we have a situation now which is not the first one, it's not the last one, and I know that you can't handle everything, but I'm suggesting trying to work out some, I guess I'd say, agreement.
With a
With
a particular situation?
Right
or-
now.
I'm going to caution you that, again, this is a discussion which is not represented by an agenda item. I would really suggest that this be
Put on the agenda?
or included in future agenda topics which are going to touch upon this subject.
So to get that added to the agenda, what would we have to do?
Well, we've got a number of communications backlogged right now that touch on this very issue, which are pending for consideration at the next meeting,
So they will be on the agenda for the next meeting? Okay.
pending the decisions of your chair and vice chair in regards to their placement.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I guess with that, we'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Can I ask a question? By the way,